I was in a breathing seminar. This was almost a year ago. It was November. We were out in the Scottsdale area. We did like a 2 hour Wim Hof. It was introductory. They were teaching, and then they brought the gong out and they took us through multiple phases. And then we did a cold plunge as a group together after that. One thing that was interesting to me is both my experience and a lot of people within the group, there's about 30 of us that sat in this room, is the breath paired with the gong took some of us into what could only be described as a psychedelic type of experience. Can you speak on what is happening and how can somebody use breath to ignite different states of consciousness, almost described as psychedelic?
Yep. Oh, no, that's Stanislav Grof, who developed holotropic breathwork. He did the early research in LSD in psychiatry, and then they couldn't duplicate studies. Everybody has such unique experiences, and it became illegal and it wasn't used. And so he realized that through the breath, you could trigger all these same psychedelic states through controlled breathing practices. So, oh yeah, it's direct. People who are doing ayahuasca and plant medicines, which has become, super popular around here. Everybody who's ever had a breathing session after they've done one of those plant medicines or psychedelic or drug sessions, they get up and they go, wow, I took a lot of drugs to feel like this. This is just like when I was on LSD, or this is just like when I was doing ayahuasca. This is just like when I was whatever, because it's a natural phenomenon related to altering your breathing patterns in certain ways to produce different brainwave states, different chemical states, activating different parts of the brain, calming certain parts of the brain, creating this frontal cortex sort of unplugging and calming the amygdala. And then, suddenly we're open to experiencing things. Suddenly things, it's like subtle energy. How can you sense subtle energy if you're not sensitive, right? If there's 100 people in a room and they're all talking and one person stops talking or one more person starts talking, who the hell notices? But when the room is silent and one person speaks, everybody notices. So we use the breath to calm our nervous system. We use the breath to come more present and be more sensitive. And then we start hearing and sensing these things. And the group field helps us. People who have the same intention, they make it easier for us to achieve things because we're getting this energetic support. And in any group, we personally responsible. We're either lifting the group up or we're driving the group down. And that's an individual responsibility. And in this way, the individual energy and the group energy become this beautiful natural mix, and everyone is up leveled in the process.
I love that. We've talked a lot about the philosophical, spiritual kind of understanding of breathwork here, this shifting of consciousness, these introductory states. But I know you've coached and worked with a lot of world-class athletes, some of the most elite performers in the world. How are the people at the top using breath to prepare, recover, and perform at a world-class level?
Yeah. They are more conscious of their breath than the average person, without exception. They're just more aware of their breath when it changes, when they're holding their breath, when they're over breathing, when breath shifts from their chest to their belly. Every 1%er, I don't care what field it's in, finance, sports, music, medicine, they are literally more aware of their breath than the average person. They're more conscious of their breathing. And I made this one of my projects in life. I met a surgeon in 1969 when they were just developing hip pins, hip nailing. I was an X-ray technician, and this was the first. They were implanting steel pins in hips, and it was new. And this surgeon was traveling around the U.S. working for the company who manufactured the pins, training all these other surgeons to do this surgery. And when he came to my hospital, I was the x-ray technician, so I would get called up to the OR and take an x-ray to see the position of the pin. So I got a chance to hang around with this guy every day for several weeks. And he had this charisma, he had this elegance, he had this grace, he had this confidence. And it was in how he moved and how he talked and how he worked. It was palpable sense of charisma in him. And when I looked at his breathing, that's how I would describe it: elegant, gorgeous, smooth. So it just like went, da-da, this guy is this way because this is the pattern of his breathing. And so I need to start to put some beautiful, powerful patterns into my breathing so I can become beautiful and powerful in whatever way I'm meant to be that way. So I forgot the question.
No, it was high performers using it. I mean, I think you nailed it. They're more aware. They're not more calm and relaxed because they're at the top. They're at the top because they've learned to be calm, aware, and relaxed.
So that's the first. They are more aware of their breath. They're more conscious of their breathing. Second is they actually engage in a breathing practice. Maybe they take one breath. Maybe I started after that. I tried to find 1%ers in every field I could. And I never met anybody who was at 1% level who didn't do that. And I thought I met somebody. His name was Rizvi. He's a big hedge fund guy in West Palm Beach, And I was invited to a party when my book was launched. And the Gypsy All-Stars were there performing privately for him and his party. And my publicist was there. And I cornered him and I asked him, I said, hey, do you practice breath work? He goes, no, I don't give that any thought. I said, well, you mean you never think about breathing? You never practice anything? No, I never do any of that. Well, no, you'd be the first exception in my life of somebody who's gotten up to the 1%. He goes, oh, whoa, wait a minute. He said, wait a minute. No, really. At night, before I go to bed, if I got a problem going around in my head I haven't solved and I realize I'm going to think about it tomorrow, I just take a long inhale. I take a long exhale. Da-da! That's breath work, buddy. He goes, wait, there's something else. I said, what? He said, when I yawn, my wife often yawns. And when she yawns, I often yawn. And we've actually started playing this game where we yawn together. Ta-da! That's breath work. There are no exceptions. I knew it. So they are more conscious of their breath, and they turn to their breath when it wouldn't occur to the average person to turn to it. The average person is going to dig down deeper into what they're struggling with rather than do what Einstein did. When he was stuck on a math problem, he took a nap. He went sailing, right? He played his violin. He disconnected. Well, breathing is going sailing, is taking a nap, and is playing your violin. It works just as well as those things. And these high performers intuitively or however develop this natural ability, and they don't even think of it as a thing. It's just something that they naturally do, so it doesn't occur to them to teach it. So meditation is one of those things. Every 1%er meditates, whether they call it meditation or not. They have developed this capacity of meditative awareness. And they're also good at relaxing. Otherwise, they couldn't function in the middle of all this stuff happening. They've naturally developed the ability to relax into the eye of the storm. And breathwork takes us to the eye of a storm. Everything else is still spinning, but we're in a beautiful central place. And so, yes, every athlete, an Olympic diver, they got their toes curled over the board. They're about to dive. What do? They use the breath to center, focus. Basketball players, same thing. I mean, it shows up in all peak performers in one form or another. And we need to be peak performers in our own mission, our own purpose, our own healing process. And so breath is a no-brainer.